Summer 1953, Quincy, Massachusetts. The Korean War ended, but Margaret Sullivan's war was just beginning. Her son died at Chosin Reservoir. Then his friends started showing up, one by one, looking for the mother they'd lost overseas. A gold star flag hung in Margaret Sullivan's window. Gold fabric, red border, white star in the center. Everyone in the neighborhood knew what it meant. Another mother, alone, another son, gone. Margaret was 42. The Korean War had ended 3 weeks ago. For her, it never would. Her son, Private First Class Michael Sullivan, died at Chosin Reservoir in December 1950. He was 19 years old. She kept his room exactly as he'd left it. Converse sneakers by the bed, Boston Red Sox pennant on the wall, a pack of Lucky Strikes hidden under the mattress. She'd found them a month after the funeral and couldn't bring herself to throw them away. The house smelled like coffee and silence. But that summer, something happened she never expected. It was a Tuesday morning. A knock at the door. She opened it to find a young man in an army uniform, cap in his hands. For one terrible second, her heart stopped. Another telegram. Another mistake. Mrs. Sullivan. His voice cracked. My name is Corporal Danny Reeves. I served with your son in Korea. Her hands went to her throat. I'm home now, Danny continued, words tumbling out. And I promised Mike, before everything, that if I made it back, I'd find you. Tell you he talked about you every single day. She invited him in, made coffee she couldn't drink, listened to stories about her son she'd never heard. When Danny left 2 hours later, she stood at the window and cried for the first time since the funeral. Not because she was sad, because for 2 hours, Michael had been alive again. Danny came back the following Tuesday, then the Tuesday after that. Sometimes he'd bring a friend, another young man with old eyes. Tommy O'Brien, who'd lost 3 toes to frostbite at the Pusan perimeter. Billy Chen, who still flinched at car horns. They didn't ask for anything. Just sat in her kitchen, drinking coffee that was too weak and eating cookies she'd learned to bake for Michael. Your son saved my life, Danny told her one afternoon. We were pinned down, and Mike, he just ran out there, drew their fire so we could move. Maggie's hand stayed steady as she poured more coffee. That sounds like him, she said quietly. He never could sit still when someone needed help. She noticed something else. These boys were hungry, but not for food. They were hungry for a place that felt like home, for someone who looked at them and didn't see a uniform, for a mother who didn't expect them to be the hero version of themselves. The Korean War ended on July 27, 1953. But for these boys, the war lived in every sudden noise, every nightmare, every moment they tried to explain what they'd seen to people who smiled politely and changed the subject. Maggie's house became a sanctuary. By September, 7 young men were showing up on Tuesday nights. By October, 12. They called themselves Mike's boys, and they called her Ma. The town started talking. That Sullivan woman has all those boys coming by. Every Tuesday night, sometimes Thursdays too. Is it proper? Mrs. Henderson from next door made it clear. Margaret, she said, people are wondering. You're a single woman, and all these young men, they're grieving. Maggie said quietly. Same as me? But what happened behind her kitchen door, that's what mattered. Danny stopped having nightmares after 6 weeks. Tommy started talking about going back to school. Billy found a job at his uncle's garage. They'd sit around her table and tell stories, not about the war, but about Michael. The time he'd tried to cook Spam and nearly burned down the mess tent. The way he'd read comic books by flashlight. How he'd saved every letter from home and kept them in his helmet. "He showed us your picture," Danny said one night. "The one from his high school graduation. Said you made him promise to finish college when he got back." Maggie's eyes were wet, but she was smiling. "He always kept his promises," she whispered. "Until he couldn't." Sometimes they'd just sit in silence. Maggie would knit. The boys would play cards or read the paper. No one pressured anyone to talk. That's what made it healing. Then, in November, a telegram arrived. Western Union, again. Maggie's hands shook as she opened it. "Mrs. Margaret Sullivan, stop. Your son, PFC Michael Sullivan, posthumously awarded Bronze Star with Valor, stop. Ceremony December 15th, Fort Devens, stop." She sat down hard in the kitchen chair. Michael had earned a medal, a Bronze Star, for valor. The boys were there that Tuesday. She showed them the telegram without saying a word. Danny read it, then looked up. "Ma, we gotta go, all of us. We represent Mike." "I can't," she whispered. "I can't watch them pin a medal on air." "You're not alone," Tommy said. "None of us are. Not anymore." December 15th, 1953. Fort Devens was 2 hours north. The temperature hadn't broken 20 degrees. Maggie wore her black coat, the same one from the funeral, and a hat she'd bought at Jordan Marsh for $3. She didn't go alone. 22 young men showed up at her house that morning. They drove in a convoy of 5 cars, American flags tied to the antennas. But as they pulled into the military base, Maggie felt something shift inside her. The ceremony hall smelled like floor wax and old coffee. Rows of folding chairs, a small stage with the American flag behind it. Maggie sat in the front row. The boys filled the 3 rows behind her. Colonel Matthews stepped to the podium. He was maybe 50, with a chest full of ribbons and eyes that had seen too much. "We are gathered today to honor Private First Class Michael Joseph Sullivan, who gave his life in service to his country." The words felt rehearsed, hollow. Maggie knew the truth. Michael had bled out in the snow, screaming for his mother, while the temperature dropped to 30 below. Then the colonel said something unexpected. "Mrs. Sullivan, your son's sacrifice represents the finest tradition of American service. But today, I see something more." He gestured to the young men behind her. "I see the men your son saved, and I see what you've done for them since." Maggie's breath caught. "We train soldiers to fight," the colonel continued. "But we don't always teach them how to come home. You did that, Mrs. Sullivan. You gave these men a place to heal." He stepped down from the podium, holding a wooden box. "This Bronze Star belongs to your son." He opened it. Then he pulled out a second medal, a Gold Star service pin. "And this is for you. For service above and beyond, for being a mother to boys who needed one." The room was silent. Maggie stood. Her legs felt weak. "I didn't do anything special," she said, voice trembling. "I just wanted to feel close to Michael again." "That's exactly what makes it special," Colonel Matthews said softly. He pinned both medals to her coat. Behind her, 22 young men stood at attention and saluted. They went to Murphy's Diner afterward, a place with red vinyl booths and a jukebox that played Hank Williams. Maggie sat in the middle booth, surrounded by boys who weren't hers, but somehow were. Danny raised his coffee cup. To Mike Sullivan, the best damn soldier I ever knew. To Mike, everyone echoed. Then Tommy raised his cup again. And to Ma Sullivan, for saving us when we didn't know we needed saving. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. But for the first time in 3 years, they weren't just tears of grief. Michael would be proud of you boys, she said. All of you. He'd be proud of you too, Ma. Spring came to Quincy in late March, 1954. Maggie's Tuesday nights had grown. 38 young men now. Some from Korea, some from World War II. Some who'd never been to war but had lost brothers who had. She started inviting other Gold Star mothers. They'd cook together, share stories, cry together. The American Legion offered her a building. She turned it down. My kitchen works just fine, she said. Then, one Tuesday in April, a letter arrived that changed everything. It was from Michael's commanding officer, Lieutenant Kowalski, who'd been with Michael the night he died. Maggie's hands trembled as she unfolded it. Dear Mrs. Sullivan, I've heard what you've been doing for the boys. I wanted you to know something we couldn't tell you before. When Mike died, his last words weren't a cry for help. He said, "Tell my ma I kept my promise. Tell her I helped." We didn't understand what he meant then, but now I do. He kept his promise to be the kind of man you raised. And through you, Mrs. Sullivan, he's still helping. Maggie read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in Michael's room, next to his bronze star. She understood now. Grief didn't mean forgetting. It meant finding new ways to love. Michael was gone. That pain would never leave. But his life hadn't ended in the snow. It had multiplied. In every boy who found peace in her kitchen. In every mother who found community in her home. In every Tuesday night that felt a little less lonely. The gold star still hung in her window. But next to it now, a small handwritten sign. All welcome here. I met Margaret Sullivan in 1987, 3 years before she died. By then, she'd welcomed over 400 young men into her home. She told me something I've never forgotten. People think the gold star is about loss, but I learned it's about love that multiplies. Here's what I want to ask you. Did you know a gold star mother? Maybe she lived on your street. Maybe she was your grandmother. What was her name? Share her story below. Because every gold star mother deserves to be remembered. Not just for who they lost, but for who they saved.